Hey there YouTube, good evening. I suppose you guys want me to give you an update on the Chevy Silverado truck. Well, that's the reason why I'm making this video, is to give you guys an update on it. So far this summer, I think I got all the little things fixed on it that were issues. There's still a couple more issues, but they're not really necessary to fix at the moment. I recently had the transmission serviced. I had the fluid changed, the gasket, the filter, because the fluid that was in the transmission looked kind of old. Even though it looked okay, it just looked kind of old. I didn't know when it was changed. And I also fixed the exhaust manifold leak on the driver's side. I replaced the exhaust manifold on this side, the driver's side. I replaced all the bolts on this side, the exhaust manifold bolts. I also had to buy a bracket from Carl Auto Parts that takes place of the very back exhaust manifold bolt, because that side, on this side in the back, those are prone to breaking off. When the bolt heads broke off on this side, they just left studs. There was one bolt head that broke off on the driver's side towards the front, and there was one that broke off towards the back. They both left studs. So I was spinning those studs out with a vice grip after I removed the exhaust manifold, and that one towards the back broke off, and that's the reason why I had to buy the repair bracket from Carl Auto Parts. It was kind of a challenge to install, but after I got everything replaced, there's no more leaks anymore. It doesn't have that tick, which would usually happen when the engine was cold. It would tick for about a minute, and then the engine would smooth out. That bracket, I was not too crazy about the idea of using that. I would have rather tried to spin the stud out of the cylinder head, but I was in a situation where the stud broke off in the cylinder head while I was trying to spin it out. And I really didn't feel like removing the cylinder head or removing the engine. So I just bought the bracket. It was only 35 bucks. So yeah, transmission service, new spark plugs, new used exhaust manifold on this side, new exhaust manifold gasket and bolts, and a repair bracket to take place of an exhaust manifold bolt that broke off in the cylinder head, which is pretty common on these engines. And I also I really didn't hardly drive the truck all winter, and I'll show you why in a second. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. You see this rear end? This is the reason why I was hardly driving my truck all winter. Around December, I started hearing noise coming from the rear end when I was driving the truck on deceleration above 35 miles an hour. It was kind of like a roaring or rumbling noise, but when you would accelerate again and when you would hit the gas again, the noise would go away. And I was telling my brother about it, and he was just like, yeah, it's probably the rear end, because he dealt with the same problems when dealing with his Silverado trucks that he owned. So I took the truck to a shop because, of course, I didn't want to work on the truck in the wintertime. I took the truck to a shop, and they popped open the cover, and they saw that the spider gears were all shredded up. And they checked everything else, and everything seemed to be fine. They thought it was the spider gears. So they just changed the spider gears and cleaned everything up and put fluid in it. But that turned out it wasn't the problem. It turned out that it was more than spider gears. It turned out that the bearings were also shot on the rear end too. And they quoted me $1,500 to install a new used rear end in the truck from a junkyard. And since that was kind of a big expense, I decided to take the truck home and think about it for a while. And after thinking about it, I was just like, what the hell? I'll get a used rear end for it and install it myself. So I went to the local LKQ, and I was looking around in there, and I did find a rear end for it, the exact rear end that was in this truck, meaning a Code GT4 373 gears. The rear end that I found at LKQ, which is on the truck now, It wasn't too attractive looking on the outside. It was pretty crispy looking on the outside because this is the rust belt. But when I popped open the differential cover, I was really impressed with what I saw. The spider gears inside looked absolutely perfect. The ring gear looked perfect too, and there was no metal shavings built up on the differential cover on the inside. And I also seen some like pen markings on the differential inside the pumpkin, the differential itself. So that told me that the rear end that I picked up from LKQ had worked onto it before, which was a bonus. So I brought it home. I paid $140 with the core for the rear end that I found at LKQ. And I was going to do the job myself, and then my brother offered to help me later on because I helped him pull an engine at LKQ. He found a project engine he loved. He found an all-aluminum 5.3 liter engine from a Chevy truck that he wanted to build up. So I helped him pull that, and in return he helped me install the rear end in my truck. So I took the rear end and the truck to my brother's house about a month later when it was warmer and no snow out. And in about 5 hours we removed the old rear end and installed the new used one. Before we installed the rear end, he had to disassemble everything in the new rear end to make sure it was all correct. He said we could have possibly just disassembled. We could have probably just installed the rear end just as it was, but there could have been something internally wrong with it. He just wanted to make sure it was all okay. And during the inspection, he found that one of the axle shafts was pitted out, so he took one out of this rear end and put it in the new rear end to take place of that pitted one. So yeah, we also put new axle seals on each side, a new pinion seal, and new backing plates too, because the backing plates that were on it on this old rear end were fine, but they were a little thin in some places. New backing plates were cheap anyway, so I just bought a new set off of eBay, and when my brother took apart the rear end, he installed those. So yeah, and now the truck is absolutely perfect now. I took it on the expressway several times, no noises. It's perfect. And that's thankful because I was really getting annoyed with it for a while. So yeah, and that concludes the video. Bye.